My name is Jamon McKinney, or you can just call me Juice because that is my nickname. Let's talk about the Indianapolis Colts in this episode. I will dive into their schedule, I will dive into their roster, and I will tell you how many games the Colts are going to win during the 2020-21 NFL season. Let's get started. I believe the Colts will actually be in contention for a playoff spot in 2020. I really do. This team won 7 games last year with inconsistent quarterback play. I'm not going to say that Jacoby Brissett was a bad player last year. I think that he at times played decent. He got a win versus Patrick Mahomes on the road. He beat Deshaun Watson once. He had some decent wins. But when I think of Jacoby Brissett, I don't think of a dynamic quarterback. And also, they were not very explosive on the outside at wide receiver, last year. T.Y. Hilton missed 6 games. And he is by far and away their best wide receiver. Devin Funchess. He was supposed to be a big addition to the team. He only played in 1 game last year. Paris Campbell. He only played in 7 games last year. And he struggled when he was on the field. Zach Pascal was this team's leading wide receiver. He was an undrafted free agent. So, when you really put in perspective what the Colts season was last year, it really was actually sort of a pat on the back to Andrew Luck. Because this team last year was pretty much the same team that went to the divisional round of the playoffs a year ago. And what's the difference? Obviously, the wide receiver is getting injured, but quarterback, Andrew Luck. I think that what people failed to realize was the Colts as a team were not as good as we thought they were. They were a solid team, no doubt, but they were great because Andrew Luck was able to carry that team from time to time. Okay? And, last year, Jacoby Brissett, he just wasn't able to be Andrew Luck. And it's kind of unfair to judge Jacoby Brissett last year simply because he was kind of, named the starting quarterback on the fly. Andrew Luck retired, right kind of right before the season officially started. And Jacoby Brissett at times played decent. In 15 games, he had 3,000 yards, 18 touchdown passes, six interceptions, but he only has 6.6 yards per attempt. That's not throwing the football down the field, and that's not making big explosive plays, aka that's 6.6 yards per attempt. Now, why do I think the Colts will be better this year? Let's actually start with the defense, because I think the defense is vastly underrated. This team added DeForest Buckner in the offseason in a trade. And DeForest Buckner might be the best defensive tackle in all of football, not named Aaron Donald. He's very good. Darius Leonard, in his first 2 seasons as a pro, he's got 284 tackles, 12 sacks, and 7 interceptions. Justin Houston had 11 sacks last year. Rock Ya-Sin, quarterback out of Temple. He didn't have the greatest rookie season, but I will say he has a lot of potential. Malik Hooker, I think he's a very underrated safety. This team had the 7th best run defense last year. And this team was playing behind a lot in games because the offense wasn't very good last year. So what does that mean? That means the defense is not put in great spots to rush the quarterback and to play their game as well. When the Colts were ahead in games and when they got out to early leads, the defense played very good. Where this defense struggled was when they were trailing as a team. So that's how I feel about the defense. The defense has a chance to be a top 10 unit this year. Let's talk about Phillip Rivers, because Phillip Rivers is the signal caller for this team this year. And I will say this, I think Phillip Rivers is actually one of the weak links of this team. Don't get me wrong, Phillip Rivers does still bring some value to this team, but Phillip Rivers last year was definitely responsible at times for a lot of the Chargers' losses. This guy made a lot of mistakes last year, and he threw 20 interceptions. I'm sorry, but when you're not a mobile quarterback and you're turning the football over, then that's a recipe for disaster as a play caller, okay? And I honestly do think Phillip Rivers' arm is borderline dead. I think his arm is kind of dead. He definitely has lost some arm strength. And I saw a guy in Phillip Rivers last year trying to make some throws that a young Phillip Rivers in his prime could have made. But in reality, he's not good enough to make those throws anymore. Now, the positives about Phillip Rivers is that he's very smart. 16 years of NFL experience. He is excellent at the line of scrimmage. He's a gamer. He's a competitor. He's very tough. He's not afraid to blitz. He's not afraid to take shots down the field. And Phillip Rivers last year actually had a 66% completion percentage. He threw for 4,600 yards and 23 touchdowns. The only problem was that he threw a bunch of interceptions. So if you cut out the interceptions and the turnovers last year, Phillip Rivers is actually still a decent quarterback. Now, what gives me confidence that Phillip Rivers maybe can lead this team to the playoffs is his head coach, Frank Wright. Frank Wright is a very young, creative head coach, especially on the offensive side of the football. And he was Phillip Rivers' quarterback coach in 2013 and his offensive coordinator in San Diego in 2014 and 2015. Phillip Rivers and Frank Wright are familiar with each other. They have a relationship. They've worked together in the past. So what that tells me is that Phillip Rivers is going to listen to Frank Wright. And if Frank Wright is smart, he's going to tell Phillip Rivers, hey man, listen, you can't make some of these throws. You can only make certain throws at this point in your career. Let's slow down. Let's take the checkdowns. Let's not take as many shots down the field. Let's work the short and intermediate passing game. Frank Wright is going to be honest with Phillip Rivers because he's been familiar with Phillip Rivers in the past. And Phillip Rivers, if he's a smart guy, he's going to trust what Frank Wright tells him. And Phillip Rivers is going to be playing behind the best offensive line in all of football. This upcoming season, Pro Football Focus has the Colts offensive line ranked number 1 in the NFL, led by 24-year-old Quentin Nelson, who in his first 2 years as a pro has been first-team All-Pro as a rookie and first-team All-Pro last year as a sophomore. So look, Quentin Nelson, he's a beast. And listen, Phillip Rivers, he's going to have a clean pocket. He's going to have time to throw and scan the field. That's one thing I will say about Phillip Rivers is last year, if you want to make excuses for him, you can say his offensive line last year was not very good. And it was not very good. And he's not capable of escaping a bunch of sacks. So I think Phillip Rivers will have a solid year. Not a breakout monster season, but I think it'll be solid. But also, keep in mind, this team is going to run the football. Marlon Mack last year had 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 4.4 yards per carry. And the Colts drafted, in my opinion, by far the best running back in the 2020 NFL Draft. His name is Jonathan Taylor. And listen, if you do not know who Jonathan Taylor is, he's an absolute beast. This is a 230-pound running back that has 4.3 speed. He ran the 40-yard dash in 4.39 seconds. Not only can he run you over and break tackles, not only does he have great vision and great patience, he's also a guy that has home run hitting ability at the running back position. As a freshman, this guy had 1,977 yards, 6.6 yards per carry, 13 touchdowns. As a sophomore, this guy had 2,194 yards rushing, 7.1 yards per carry, 16 total touchdowns. As a junior, 2,003 yards, 6.3 yards per carry, 26 touchdowns total. This guy is arguably the best running back, in my opinion, to come out of college since Saquon Barkley. I believe he's an absolute stud, and this Colts running back core is loaded because Jonathan Taylor is a beast. And also, the Indianapolis Colts should have a better wide receiver core. I don't project the Colts having as many injuries at wide receiver as they did last year, but even if they do, you got Michael Pitman Jr., who you added in the draft, who I like a lot. Michael Pittman Jr. reminds me a lot of Michael Thomas. Now, will he become Michael Thomas? Probably not, because Michael Thomas is the top 3 wide receiver in all of football. But Michael Pittman, I do think that he has a lot of potential. He's an excellent route runner, great hands. He had 100 catches last year, 101 catches, 1,275 yards, and 11 touchdown catches as well. He's very, very good. I think that he's pro-ready right now, meaning he will come in and contribute at a high level. You obviously got T.Y. Hilton still, who's a good deep threat when healthy. Jack Doyle's a very underrated tight end. Trey Burton's a good tight end. Paris Campbell, to me, does have some potential. I have not given up on Paris Campbell yet. And with all that being said, I think the Colts are a 9-win team this year. I believe the Colts are going to go 9-7 during the 2020 NFL season. This offense should be good. This offense should be efficient. It should be much better this year. You got very good running backs, a decent wide receiver core, the best offensive line in all of football, and I think Phillip Rivers can be efficient enough to win games. I think the defense is very underrated. My only problem with the Colts is this. I don't think they're explosive enough on offense. And this team is not built to trail. This team is built to play with leads. When the Colts fall behind 14-0, let's say 21-10, they're most likely not winning those games because they don't have enough offensive firepower to come back and strike back at you at a high rate. And Phillip Rivers, I don't want Phillip Rivers throwing the ball 30 or 40 times a game because that's a recipe for disaster at times at this stage in his career. So that's how I feel about the Colts. I don't think Phillip Rivers is a very good playmaker, off schedule either. He's not very mobile. He's a statue in the pocket. That does limit this offense a little bit, but I think the Colts are a very solid, sound football team that will be well coached. Let's dive into the schedule a little bit. What I'm going to do for the schedule is I'm not predicting game by game which teams will beat the Colts and which teams the Colts will beat. I'm just going to tell you which games I would favor each team in and where the losses can potentially come. That's what I'm doing for my schedule breakdown this year. At Jaguars, I favor the Colts. Vikings at home, I actually favor the Vikings. I think that they are a little bit more explosive on both sides of the football. Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. Jets at home, that should probably be a win. At Bears, I favor the Colts. At Cleveland, I think Cleveland's a better team than Indianapolis this year. Cincinnati at home, I would favor the Colts. Coming off a bye week at Detroit, that's a toss-up game. I think Detroit's going to be very good this year. Baltimore, I don't think Baltimore is going to have much trouble beating this Colts team. At Titans, that's probably a win. I think the Titans are good, but not great. I actually have you splitting with the Titans this year. So yeah, you'll split with the Titans. Green Bay at home, that's a toss-up game, but I actually favor Green Bay just because I think Aaron Rodgers will make a play or two in that game that Phillip Rivers will not be able to make. So I favor Green Bay, actually. Titans, like I said, you will split with them. At Texans, I think you'll split with the Texans once again this year. You actually give Deshaun Watson a lot of problems, but I think Deshaun Watson will at least get a game on the Colts this year. At Vegas, probably a win. Vegas beat you guys last year. I think you'll return the favor this year. Texans, I already talked about that game. At Steelers, I actually think that's a loss. The Steelers were a very good team last year with not very good quarterback play. They actually played very similar to the Colts. I don't think Phillip Rivers will be able to move the football on that Steelers defense. And then Jaguars at home, that should be a win. Probably. So either way you slice it, I think the Colts are a solid football team. And I believe the Colts are going to go 9-7 during the 2020-21 NFL season. Thank you so much for watching this video today. Please also note that the Juice Alert Sports Podcast is not just a YouTube channel. It is available on all podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts. Also, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this content with all your friends. This podcast is my favorite thing in the entire world right now. It is my passion. And I want more people to listen to this podcast. I really want this podcast to grow. Also, a fun fact about me is that I want to go into the sports broadcasting and media world once I graduate from the University of Toledo, a college in Northern Ohio. I am looking to become one of the next great sports broadcasters and analysts out in the world. And I potentially would like to start my own network if this podcast really truly grows. Or if I fall short of that goal, I would love to work for a big-time network like ESPN or Fox Sports 1. I am open to all networks. So if you believe in my dreams and you see or hear my passion through the screen, be sure to tell all your friends about the Juice Alert Sports Podcast. Stay motivated, you guys. Have a God-blessed day, and I'm out.